Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this video is a quick preview and prediction for Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3. This fight goes down on the 24th of July in Las Vegas. Now of course, originally in the heavyweight division, this wasn't the fight in which people were expecting to see. We was expecting to see Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury for Undisputed, and when that fell through and Deontay Wilder won arbitration for a third fight, a lot of people were very disappointed, including myself for a short period of time. But once the third fight got announced, I just kind of said to myself, I'm going to enjoy this for what it is. I'm going to enjoy the build-up and I'm going to enjoy the fight night. And yeah, I've really just accepted it for what it is, and I'll be honest, I am somewhat looking forward to this third fight, believe it or not. But yeah, let's briefly run through the tail of the tape. We shall start with Tyson Fury. He has a record of 30-0 with one draw, 21 of his 30 wins coming by way of stoppage. Deontay Wilder has a record of 42 wins, 1 defeat, 1 draw, 41 of those 42 wins coming by way of knockout. Both of those blemishes on Deontay Wilder's resume come at the hands of Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is listed as 6'9" with an 85-inch reach, whereas Deontay Wilder is listed as 6'7" with an 83-inch reach. So Tyson Fury has a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage, and in both fights that definitely gave Deontay Wilder some problems, so more than likely that will also be the case when it comes to this third fight. But let's move on. Tyson Fury is an orthodox fighter, but he can actually switch it and, change it up in terms of stances, whereas Deontay Wilder is purely an orthodox fighter. Tyson Fury is 32 years old, whereas Deontay Wilder is 35 years old. So that is the tail of a tape out of the way. Now, let's briefly break down what I believe each guy should do, and at the end of the video I will reveal my prediction. But anyway, let's get into it. I guess from a simplicity standpoint, I will start with Tyson Fury. Given how Tyson Fury performed in the second fight, I think he would be best advised to basically do what he did first time around, with a few tweaks here and there. One thing Tyson Fury mentioned in the build-up to this fight was that he actually intends to be even more heavy for this third fight, because in his words, he's gunning for an early knockout. I felt in the second fight at 274, with that specific style of fighting, I felt that Tyson Fury looked very strong, very fit, and very effective at that weight with that style. So I really wouldn't change much in regards to the weight if I was Tyson Fury. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Adding too much weight, who knows, could have a detrimental effect. Maybe not, who knows, but I don't think it's wise tempting fate or anything like that. So yeah, first thing, with Tyson Fury's weight, I would come in at a similar weight to the second fight, and I would fight in a similar style to the second fight, where he was applying pressure and walking down Deontay Wilder, and he wasn't just doing that using his superior sort of size, height and reach. It wasn't just him bulldozing forwards. He was doing a good job in regards to his jab and manoeuvring Deontay Wilder around the ring. I felt Tyson Fury's double jab in that second fight was very effective. It wasn't one of Tyson Fury's flick jabs. He was actually committing to that jab a lot more in that second fight. And, that shot gave Deontay Wilder all sorts of problems for as long as that fight went on. So third time around, he needs to utilise that shot again. He needs to utilise that step-in jab and the double jab. And what Tyson Fury was doing well, besides the jab in the second fight, was the feinting while he was coming forwards. He had Deontay Wilder really second-guessing himself and bracing himself for shots that never came, because Tyson got Deontay's respect very early in that fight. He dropped him early, he was catching him with stinging jabs and whatnot, and, he got Deontay's respect very early on, and because he got Wilder's respect early on, Wilder at that point was a sucker for the feints, and he was biting on every single one of them. So the feint game for Tyson Fury in this third fight is also going to be very important. One thing I want to see more of from Tyson Fury in this fight, and don't get me wrong, he did a good job of mauling Deontay Wilder in the clinch in the second fight, but in this third fight, one thing I do want to see, or one thing I want to see more of from Tyson Fury, is that sort of messy bodywork in the clinch. You know, hand free, hook to the body, try to sneak a few short uppercuts to the midsection, and, you know, chip away at Deontay Wilder's midsection, because in that second fight, Deontay Wilder's legs were gone very early on, and, you know, Tyson Fury, he did do body work, but it was inconsistent. I want to see a much more consistent body assault from Tyson Fury in this third fight. I think that could be very effective. It was effective in the second fight, and he never really committed to it round after round, so, you know, a more committed body attack for Tyson Fury in this third fight could really pay dividends, and it could tell very early on. So I want to see more body work from Tyson Fury in this third fight, and the only other thing really I can think of with Tyson Fury is, you know, he started that second fight extremely well, and, you know, he dropped Wilder early on, and he was beating him up. As that fight was going on, I felt Tyson Fury was actually taking a lot more risks than he usually would because he was so comfortable. So, you know, early on he was doing a good job of taking his head off centre line and making himself a hard target. But as that fight went on, Tyson Fury's head was on centre line a lot more often. The only thing was Deontay Wilder never capitalised on it. So in this third fight, particularly if Tyson Fury starts really well, you know, he can't afford to be complacent against Deontay Wilder, because who knows, at the end of the day we can say Wilder's this, Wilder's that, but he can punch, and we know he can hurt Tyson Fury. So I want to see Tyson Fury, you know, just pay attention to that defense, don't get complacent, and give Deontay Wilder an opportunity to land that hard right hand, because ultimately that's all Deontay Wilder has at the elite level. I know Wilder's been working on different combinations in the gym, but in his 40-odd fights so far, he's really only shown us that right hand. So don't give Deontay a chance to land it. Try and minimise that risk, even if you're applying pressure, you know. But yeah, ultimately Tyson Fury needs to do what he did first time around, but I would advise him just to be careful and don't get too complacent with Deontay Wilder. But yeah, that's really all I can say for Tyson Fury. As for Deontay Wilder, I mean, listen, where do we start with Deontay Wilder? First time around, you know, he kind of got outfoxed by Tyson Fury and got lucky to get a draw. And the second time around, he got beat from pillar to post. So it's hard to know where to start with Deontay Wilder, especially knowing his skill set, but there are things out there I do believe he can do to try and improve. One thing he's been doing on the pads with Malik Scott is utilising that jab to better effect, and I appreciate pads don't hit back, but in the pad work, Deontay's been throwing the jab and, you know, taking his head off centre line. I want to see Deontay Wilder replicate that pad routine in this fight. Fire the jab, take your head off centre line. And I want to see Deontay Wilder fire that jab consistently. You know, you need to give Tyson Fury something else to think about apart from that big right hand. And also change levels with the jab. Don't just throw it to the head, throw it to the chest, throw it to the body. One thing Wilder did in the first fight, which he should have done a lot more of, was the jab to the body, because every single time he was throwing it for the most part, it was landing. The only thing was, he wasn't throwing it enough. So in this fight, I want to see Deontay be much more active with the jab while taking his head off centre line and varying that jab from body to head. It gives Tyson something else to think about, and I guess it's a way that he can disguise that big right hand. You know, a jab to the body can be a great way to set up the overhand right. If you keep on throwing the jab to the body and then eventually feint the jab to the body and come back over with an overhand right, you know, sometimes you can catch fighters unaware. And I think that's a tactic which Deontay Wilder would be wise to implement. I'm not saying it would definitely work, but it's definitely worth a try. I know Deontay Wilder's not advanced technically, but any fighter at any real level should be able to throw the jab to the body, then feint the jab to the body and come over with an overhand right. It's a pretty simple tactic, but, you know, it is quite effective. We saw Marcus Maidana do it against Adrian Broner, where he was jabbing to the body, then he feinted the jab to the body, came over the top with an overhand right and dropped Adrian Broner. Maidana's not exactly an athletically gifted fighter, and he was able to set a trap for Adrian Broner, so, that's something that Deontay Wilder can definitely look at in this fight. Another avenue in which I want to see Deontay Wilder pursue in this fight is, if there are any moments in which he's got Tyson Fury against the ropes, I think he would be wise to throw some body shots, and he should start to the body. Don't throw an overhand right, miss, and then go to the body. Start at the body, and then try and come back and end that combination with a right hand to the head. Deontay's been, utilising body work in these pad sessions with Malik Scott. So if you're going to do it on the pads, you might as well try and replicate it in the ring. One thing about Tyson Fury is he does have real good head movement. He takes his head off centre line, he leans back, he can take the sting off a shot. Tyson Fury's got great head movement, but he's open to the body, his head moves, but his body stays there. We saw that in the Otto Wallin fight. Otto Wallin had a lot of success to the body in that fight. Even like Derek Chisora in their first fight way back when, he had a lot of success to the body. John McDermott. Tyson Fury can be caught to the body, and he is relatively open there. Problem is, most heavyweights aren't really body punchers, so nobody's really made him pay for it, but I think Deontay would be wise to start to the body. If Tyson's against the ropes, start a combination to the body, and then come over with an overhand right kind of thing. Again, to me, it's all about Deontay finding new ways to land that right hand. Pouring with the jab from range and then firing it down the middle probably isn't going to work against Tyson Fury like it's worked against everybody else, right? So he needs to find more subtle ways of landing that straight right hand, and he needs numerous tactics, numerous drills, numerous ideas in how to land that straight right hand. He can't afford to do the same thing that he did in the first fight and second fight. He needs new ways, and that's what I would be drilling Deontay Wilder in practice, in training camp, because ultimately Deontay Wilder can't outbox Tyson Fury for 12 rounds and win on points. He can't beat Tyson Fury up on the inside and be a pressure fighter or anything like that. He needs to land that one-hitter quitter, JFK style, knock his dome piece off, because that's the only chance he's got of winning this fight. Right now, Deontay Wilder is like a sniper with no scope, and you've got a fucking target 500 metres away. More than likely you're going to miss. So Deontay needs to find ways of landing that big right hand, and he can't do what he's been doing his whole career. So Deontay needs to change things up in this fight. Maybe some feints, try and feint Tyson Fury in, try and draw Tyson Fury's lead, half step back, straight right hand down the pipe. Just things like this, other ways of throwing the right hand other than pouring your jab hand, looking for the distance, and then firing your right hand. Deontay needs to be a lot more subtle with his setup in this fight, and it's down to Malik Scott to drill Deontay Wilder in regards to finding other ways to land that straight right hand. It's as simple as that, really, in my opinion. But as for this fight, how do I believe it's going to go? I still, in the back of my mind, see Deontay Wilder as an exceptionally dangerous fighter. On any given night, I believe he can land that shot and knock anybody out. He's got that sort of power. But ultimately, given how both fights have played out to date, especially the second fight, you can't look beyond a Tyson Fury win. And I would say Tyson Fury wins this fight by a mid to late round stoppage. I think that's where the safe money is when it comes to this fight. But one thing I will add, how many opportunities do you want to give Deontay Wilder to knock you out? It's a dangerous fight still, as bad as we may think Deontay Wilder is technically, he still only really needs that one shot, and we know he can hurt Tyson Fury, so I do still see it as a dangerous fight. It's a banana skin type of fight for Tyson Fury, so he needs to be switched on, he needs to be on his P's and Q's. If he is, he should win, but stranger things have happened. But yeah, my prediction is a Tyson Fury mid-round stoppage. I know a lot of you guys aren't looking forward to this fight, but to be honest, as it gets closer, I am somewhat excited for it. And in this prediction, I did try to, be somewhat fair with Deontay Wilder. I don't want to sit here and just say other guy's shit and he's got no chance. I wanted to highlight some ways in which I believe he can improve and sort of add some tactics in which I believe he can actually follow and can actually carry out. So there we go. Share your predictions below. Who have you guys got winning this fight? Are you guys like me and, are going for the favourite in Tyson Fury? Or do you believe that Deontay Wilder can regain the WBC Heavyweight Championship of the world? Share your thoughts below. Peace.